I think we're good. Uh, I'm John Dow. Thanks for tuning in. Formerly the conversation coach. Be keeping up these Sunday afternoon, noonish live streams for about 15 to 20 minutes. Um, I say that with a couple loose bullet points in mind on what I might speak about. I try to throw it together in the title and put it in the description, but sometimes I get distracted. People who have been joining in each chat, it's been a welcome conversation and live streaming, what I keep saying is one method of speaking that's not always the most authentic to real conversational speaking. So even if I get disoriented, distracted, thrown off from what I'm thinking in my head to just speak with whoever's in the chat, I think that's still a more genuine take to have. Um, my voice is a little bit shot because I joined a indie pro wrestling event last night. Shouldn't say joined. I attended, and it was a lot of fun. But speaking over the crowd, over the music, my voice is a little bit hoarse. So to keep it well rested, I think I'm going to try to keep it under 15 minutes today, but we'll see. One of the core tenets that I've been trying to repeat again and again with any kind of speaking practice is it really comes down to the context, who you're talking to, and why do you want to talk with them. Now, learning new words, vocabulary, whether it's actually to improve your English or you have personal investment to learn those new words. Maybe you're in a certain field. Maybe you want to sound more technical. Maybe you think it'll make you sound smarter. Maybe you have something in your head that sets you up where you talk too simple. You want to sound more sophisticated. More sophisticated speech makes you sound more impressive, or you want to wow and you impress. You want to impress. Those are all things that can kind of factor in. But just like the overall speaking context, who are you talking to? Why do you want to talk to this person? You should boil down words in the same way because not every single word is going to have the same utility. I'm going to have to repeat it again and again, but often when I'm correcting other people, it's like there's this distinction between words that you need to know, to comprehend, to understand, and words that you would actually use. And usually it's a much bigger pool of words that you need to be able to decipher, yes, at your level, intermediate, high intermediate, advanced. You should be knowing those words. You should not be confused. You should not be mixing those up. But even though you hear them, even though it seems like other people are using those words often, that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be using those words yourself. And in fact, like a lot of the words that get repeated too often, they get really, really tiresome. In the YouTube space, one of the phrases that I hear all the time is without further ado. And I'm really sick and tired of it. But even though I might have personal disdain for it, even though consciously I know that I don't like it that much, do I fall prey to it? Do I end up using it? Probably, just because it's so easy to transition into another talking point. Getting lost in the sauce a little bit here. But when it comes to words, so base level, okay, do you understand it? Okay, look it up in the dictionary. I didn't know this word before. Here's the definition: noun, verb, adjective, adverb. Okay, that's its place in grammar. Okay, then you start to put it together in practice sentences, and that's something that people are used to in school. So let's. Okay, I'm just trying to think of simple examples. My cat over here, he's sitting on his cat tower. So we know sitting. What's going on, Jordan? Smooth. Not me, but maybe you. Um, so we can say my cat is sitting on his cat tower. My cat is crouching on his cat tower. Okay, crouch. Maybe you never learned that move before. Or maybe because you have other interests, you have, you're exploring other things, like you're a gamer, your move. Okay. Um, you would know what crouch is because in a lot of first person shooters, you're crouching a lot, right? um, Understanding that word, that action, at a certain level, you should know what it is. But how often are you going to be using it? So when you do practice sentences, oh, the soldier crouched in the battlefield. My cat is crouching on the cat tower. Um, Sometimes when I need a break, I'll crouch in the weight room. So you start forcing certain practices And then you start to think, oh, yeah, I'm using this word, I'm understanding it. But that practice and utility and understanding for reinforcing the idea, for going through the word, that's like a very specific sample space that you're doing it. And that's good. You can build confidence in that way. But translating it to the real world, does it really have that utility for that word crouch? I don't think so. Unless maybe you're a soldier or maybe like you are a influencer that build you have your pets on TikTok and Instagram and that type of thing. So context coming back into play right there. For your average person, when are they going to use the word crouch? And if there is a situation where they can use the word crouch, is there probably going to be another word that they could use instead? Sitting on the ground, right? Kneeling. Identifying the word, understanding it, comprehending it, but then being quick to substitute it with something else. I think that skill, that's how you actually get more eloquent in your speech because you're faster. That's how you sound more like a native speaker because you don't get stuck. How many times when you don't remember the word and you beat yourself up? I was talking about this in the vocabulary trap video that I produced. Had a client, they couldn't remember the word faucet. Is faucet something that we use on a day to day basis? Yeah. Is it important? Sure. Is talking about a faucet really important? Not really, unless the faucet has some kind of problem, right? And you need to get it fixed. But even then, when you're contacting a plumber or you're talking to your landlord, you're trying to explain there's something wrong with it, there's ways to dance around the topic. Oh, like you could talk about the area in my kitchen. There's something going on with the sink, and like the other person can ask you more follow up questions, right? But going back to the vocabulary yourself, so realizing that okay, there's layers and tiers to this. Do I understand it? Can I do a quick practice run of it? But can I think through where I would use this in my day to day life? That's where you should put a little bit more effort and energy in. Because if you can't even think of how you might apply it into your day to day life, you could force it. But if nothing really comes to mind, like if you really have to sit and think, when would I ever use this word? Its utility probably isn't there. You don't need to use it. Now, the extra factor to think about is need versus want. So, what if it's a word that you're really enamored with? Like you really like the sound, it's fun to say, or your favorite character on a TV show? This is that Hollywood English concept that I've mentioned before. If that speaks to you in that way, yeah, then that's extra incentive for you to try to keep tinkering and experimenting with. And that's part of the fun of speaking and finding your style. But just know that that's a stylistic choice. So, don't be too hard on yourself, putting extra pressure when you're just figuring out your style, right? Um, you'll notice that anybody who has an odd way of speaking, they're influenced by some material also. This day and age, is it probably going to be movies and TV shows? Most likely. But before, and still to this day, people get influenced by literature, something that they read. Wow, this author doesn't have to be poetry, but just like the way that it's described and the way that it's written really speaks to them. It moves them. It's like really, really touching. So just knowing that I could say it simply like you have an easier time learning a language or learning new words when you remember that it's a living, breathing thing. But even though that's true, I don't think that always resonates with everybody because they're still so used to thinking of vocabulary like a multiple choice quiz or a test or a homework or something like that, right? But you just make it so much harder for yourself. And if you fall back into that type of thinking, it makes a lot of sense the younger you are, if you're still in school or you're fresh out of school. But I think my bread and butter in the past was working with adult learners and just pointing out to them that because they've experienced life, they've worked jobs, they've went through all sorts of hardships, why would you box yourself back into that limited way of thinking after you've experienced world and you've gotten out of that box, you've gotten out of that bubble? So there are going to be times where you should be hard on yourself, or like you need to be like, hey, why are you still making this mistake? But when it comes to word choice and learning new words, I don't think this is an environment to be that brutal about it. um, I didn't know if I was going to link in this video, but with Valentine's Day coming up, um, there is that realm of like dating advice and dating topics. And I've kind of danced around it before. It is something that when I was doing speech coaching, a lot of people did ask me about it. But I think the fundamentals are all kind of rooted in the same way, where you have this ideal, an image of how it should be. But oh, just because you learned this really fancy word, just because you know how to pronounce something that's really difficult to pronounce, how impressed are people actually going to be? You know, you learned this one word. Whoa, your boss thinks you're so cool and he's going to give you a promotion? Probably not. I mean, if it that would be awesome. If that was the case, then I would encourage more people to learn those type of words. But I just don't see it really happening. It's the same thing in the dating field. Like I think it really comes down to with vocabulary learning. I said it's the context, right? Who are you talking to? Why are you wanting to talk with them? With dating, how well do you know this person and how can you get to know them better? Like if you can keep that as your compass, you'll have an easier time. I'm not going to say an easy time because I know it's a hellscape out there for a lot of people, but that way you don't fall into the trappings of like, what's this topic or what's this magic word to say, or like, how do I impress them with like this one single thing? Because if you go that route, you're not really learning that much more about the person. And then it's going to send you in different pathways that are even more exhausting. And you'll feel like you're learning things about this person without actually learning about them. So that might be a little bit highbrow and a little bit out there. I'll try to refocus it as we get closer to Valentine's Day. But if we put it again, closing out the stream to be more actionable, what vocabulary do I have around me that's inspiring enough? I know, riveting, me reading a box of material that's next to me. Okay, so I have this Xbox headset. It says, experience the unfair advantage used by some of the world's best esports athletes. Oh, that's mirrored. But okay, let's take the word unfair. I think if people know this, they should give themselves a little bit of credit where it's a word that you understand, but putting it into terms to explain it is actually kind of difficult, right? So unfair, opposite is fair. I'm just spitballing here, just, equal, moral, proper, right and wrong, give and take. So we have all these concepts that might not be the exact definition, but I think it's okay to let your mind wander in this way. So you find an anchor point. You learn a new word. Is it related to any other concept that you have before? If you can find a relatability point, hey, Dozens, thank you so much for swinging by, man. I know I started this week's stream a lot later than last week, but I appreciate you. Our conversation we had last time, it's been in my mind, and I actually passed it on to like another friend who actually does religious streams. So again, Dozens, thank you so much, man. Um, So you find a word that's relatable to something that you know. And if it's a brand new concept, something that is completely new and unfamiliar to you, that's where you give yourself a little bit more grace. That should be the exact moment that you don't want to be too hard on yourself. So, is there a relatable point? Even if it's not perfect, try to have that anchor point. It makes it easier. Then you can go through the routine of, okay, well, I just want to try to brute force practice this whatever grammar point it is. If it's a subject, then I'm going to attach verbs to it. If it's a verb, I'm going to try to attach subjects to it. So unfair, that's an adjective. Um, what's unfair in the world right now? Interviews, the hiring process, the economy, climate change. Like, oh my, I, I mean, unfair is a negative word, right? So we can't just put positive things associated with it. Um, What else is unfair? People's skill in video games, musicians, people who can learn multiple languages. It's unfair how easy it is for those people compared to me. Okay, we established that. Now, click it over. Realistically, practically, how much am I going to use that? I just said that I don't want to be too negative. Um, I don't like to complain. How often do I want to be talking about things that are unfair? So, oh, that's not really something that I want to be talking about. It's important for me to know it, but for me to use it, okay, I made that distinction. And now that I know that there's no real utility for me to use it, then I won't worry about it. Now I can focus my energy and efforts on other vocabulary words or other things that I want to talk about. So don't get not greedy, but don't consume vocabulary and learning things like junk food because I know how enticing it can be because we want to feel productive. We want to feel like we're learning. But it's better for the long term when you can slow down a little bit and you can separate. It's like, okay, yeah, I'm learning, I'm going through the process, I can practice it, but now how do I want to use it? Am I actually going to use it? Oh, like it turns out there's no real need for me to use that word. Then okay, then that actually saves me a lot of time, effort, and guilt tripping myself, feeling bad for not having progress. Because if I put it in my head, like, I gotta be using this word unfair, all native speakers use this word, all professionals, all the people in TED Talks, they somehow find a way to bring up the word unfair, but I can't use it. That's a waste of time. Like, that's where you're self sabotaging yourself. And like I said, we have no need to self sabotage ourselves. So I think there we go. We got to 17 minutes here. Thanks for anybody who's tuning in or checking out the VOD later. We'll see if we can cut this up and kind of scary, but maybe the next one we'll dive into some dating stuff. Okay. So that's it for this stream. Thanks for tuning in. Guys, take care. Enjoy your Sunday.